Hello and welcome to this ESA Hangout. My name is Maria Bennett. I'm joined today by Samantha Cristoforetti. Hi Samantha.
Hello, hi Maria, hi everybody.
So Samantha, the last time we spoke, we did a Hangout was back in May, you remember. It was just before Alex was going into space. And so if you could tell us what you've been doing since then.
Last time we spoke was like today, actually. I remember it was the day before we left for Baikonur, and I'm about to leave for Baikonur tomorrow, except that back then I was backup crew, and we went there to say goodbye to Alex, Reed, and Max, and this time we're going to do it for real. Since then, it's been training again, so it was kind of a little bit of a shock to go back to training after going through all the quarantine and preparations for launch, and almost going yourself, because we were really shadowing them. We were shadowing the prime crew all the way to the launch pad, really, and so from then we went on to, we moved on to training as usual. So it took a while to get adjusted to that mindset of, you're back in training, you still need to work hard for 6 months. There was some proficiency, basically, because in many ways we were ready to go 6 months ago, right? So some things we just needed to stay proficient at, mainly robotics, spacewalking, flying the Soyuz, the manual modes of flying the Soyuz, so manually flying rendezvous, docking, manual descent, all of that. Emergency, of course, we did several emergency simulations over in Houston and here in Star City. But then, of course, we added a lot of preparations to perform experiments on board that specifically are going to be in our increment. And so a lot of stuff that we were really going to do on orbit. When you're doing an emergency sim, you do not really necessarily expect, and certainly you do not want, to put all that training into practice. Chances are you're not going to have a fire on board, and certainly you do not want that. When you're preparing for an experiment, you know that most likely you are actually going to do that in space. So it was kind of different and very interesting.
Yeah. So that means that you're ready to fly now, I guess.
I am, yes. Anton, Terry, and I, we had our final exams about 10 days ago. Was the last one? Was the big exam, the Soyuz simulation, the full-day simulation, in which you go through all the pre-launch operations, launch, insertion into orbit, the initial maneuvers that you do once you're in Earth orbit, and then the rendezvous to the station, docking. Then you take a break for lunch, and then in the afternoon you do what we're going to do in 6 months' time. So undocking and coming back to Earth, of course with a lot of malfunctions thrown at us. So that was our big final qualification exams, and that was about 10 days ago. Followed by a lot of celebrations here in Star City, and by a week of rest, of traditions, and of a lot of packing, really.
Yeah. So, so when we spoke in May, you were about to go to Baikonur. How was that experience being there? I think it was the first time you were there watching the launch. How was that?
Those were certainly among the best weeks of my life. It was just great to to be shadowing, to be going step by step next to the prime crew, to see all of that happen, to see them getting ready to launch, to do the fit checks, actually sit in their spaceship just as they did. Try not to break anything, because that was the ship they were going to space with, and with that actually safely took them back to Earth just a few hours ago. It's like one big dress rehearsal. Like you know that most likely you're not going to space yourself, and you don't really want to, because you know that your turn is coming in 6 months, and it's all planned that way. So it's not like you're wishing anything bad to the prime crew. Quite the contrary. You want them to go, and you want to go yourself when the time comes. And so you have this big dress rehearsal in which you have very little pressure on you, and you can just enjoy it. Plus, it was May, which is just a wonderful time of the year down in Baikonur. It's probably going to be slightly colder tomorrow.
Yeah, just a little bit. Sorry, just a minute. So if somebody... Excuse me, sorry, I'm doing something. Can you leave? Sorry about that. So just get back to my train of thought. So tomorrow you go to Baikonur. How are you feeling? How are you feeling about that emotionally? I mean, it must be quite different to last time.
Definitely, it's a lot more stressful in the days, leading up to your departure, because when I left to back up, again, I didn't really expect that I was going to space. So I was expecting to be back here in Star City after 2 weeks. Right now, I'm really going to go. So there's a lot of planning, of logistics involved. I mean, you need to, literally, you need to do a lot of packing. I mean, there's nothing that relates to the space station. I mean, all of that is done, by professionals that take care of the logistics. But you have to think about when you come back. So there's 2 bags that we have to prepare for the landing sites. One is your main landing site bag, and then there is a ballistic landing site bag. On a landing day like today, when Alex and Reed and Max came back, there's always 2 search and rescue teams ready to come and get you. One at the nominal landing site, and one at this ballistic site, which is where you would land if you had a big emergency on the Soyuz after undocking from the station, and you had to re-enter in an emergency situation, and then you would go ballistic. And that would be a different site, which is quite further away from the prime site. And so 2 different rescue teams. And each of those teams, typically your flight surgeon will have your landing bag with the little things that you will immediately need on the way back, in my case, to Houston, and Alex's case, back to Cologne. Your flight suit, a change of underwear, a change of socks, some hygiene and toiletry items, stuff like that. So you pack those bags, and then in my case, I also have to think about what I want to be somehow brought to Houston before I get back in 6 months, because I don't live in Houston, I don't have a household there, but I will be living there for about a month before I get to fly back to Europe. And so obviously I will have to survive there. So a lot of thinking about the logistics.
Yeah, it's a lot to prepare for if you're going to go away for 6 months, I think. So we're also taking, sorry, carry on.
Just really wrapping up my life here in Star City, right? I mean, I've been coming here to Star City for, different stints of, 2 weeks or sometimes 6 weeks, even up to 8 weeks. And so in a way I have a little household here of stuff that, I never took back and forth and just stayed here. And now all of that needs to be packed too. And it's like you're really like wrapping up your Star City life.
Yeah. So we've also been asking people to send their questions on Twitter and on Google+. So if anybody wants to send a question, you can use the hashtag #AskSamantha or even ESAHangout, or on Google+ if you post it to the event. So we had a question from Irene, who's 5 years old, and she has a 3-year-old sister. She says she wants to be an astronaut like you, and she'd like to know what you're taking on your spaceship with you, and are you excited about the trip?
Irene, that's the name?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, hello, Irene, and thanks for the question, and good luck on your journey to become an astronaut, first of all. I'm definitely very, very excited. And what I'm taking with me, right now with me on the Soyuz, I have about 1.5 kilos of personal stuff that I get to take. And most of it is like little mementos and little objects, sometimes little pieces of jewelry that belong to friends and family, and you get to take those to space, and just because they bear significance for people you care for, and then it's kind of nice to for them to have the chance of having those things flown into space.
Yeah. And a related question, I guess, is Red Lobster. He says hello from Germany. He says, are you taking anything from your home country up with you into space?
Oh, hello, Red Lobster. From my home country, I'm bringing quite a few things. Let's see, I have a flag, which represents a joint project we have with some friends of mine who are pilots, and they're actually on wheelchairs. It's called We Fly with Tura Dare to Fly. And so I'm bringing a flag that has our joint logo of their aerobatic team. They actually have a little aerobatic team, and they do wonderful performances in the air, and our Futura logo. And then they're very unique. It's an Italian aerobatic group, and I think they're quite unique in the world in that, again, they're actually on wheelchairs. I'm bringing some food from Italy in my bonus food. I'm bringing some dishes, not necessarily stuff that you would associate with what's internationally known as Italian cuisine, but definitely produced by an Italian chef and produced in Italy, and all dishes and ingredients chosen to be extremely effective in helping you keep in good shape and in good health. Those are probably the main things that come to mind.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, someone was asking about photos. There are a couple of questions. You were doing some training with IMAX. Will you be filming something up there whilst you're there?
Yes, definitely. It's no secret. There is a project to do a new IMAX movie on the space station, and so both Terry, my NASA crewmate, and I have been trained on the IMAX hardware and a little bit on, trying to have a movie maker's take on things. And so we'll definitely try and do our best to shoot the scenes that we have been asked for to support this movie.
Okay, great. And related to that, Adam asks, he says he's really enjoyed the pictures that Alex has managed to send back. And have you had much practice with the cameras? And Ray Page is also asking, will you be taking lots of pictures and tweeting them?
That's definitely the plan. I mean, Alex has always been a really good photographer, so probably to say that I will match Alex's work is too much. But even for someone like me who's not a great photographer, I think having the Earth as your subject definitely helps in taking great pictures, even if you don't have huge skills like probably I don't have.
I guess you watched the landing this morning.
I did not. No,
okay.
It was very either late at night or early in the morning, however you want to say it. So.
Yeah. Will you be expecting to be able to see Maxime today, or not?
He walked into this building not long ago. This is actually it's called Profilactorium. It's so on the second floor we have our ESA accommodation and our ESA office and a little kitchen, and that's where ESA astronauts' life take place when we're not in training. On the first floor is the same thing, but for NASA. And on the first floor, there are rooms that are actually mainly used for returning cosmonauts. They not only have a quarantine time before launch, but they have a sort of a quarantine after they come back to Star City. And so returning cosmonauts are actually flown directly from the landing site in Kazakhstan to Star City, and then there is this little mini ceremony where they come, they walk out of the bus and into this building, and they're usually welcomed by some representatives of the local community. So definitely Max arrives in this building, just 2 floors beneath us, and he might, depending on how he feels, he might show up tomorrow to say a farewell to us. When we left back in May, the day you leave for Baikonur, there is a little ceremony in the morning. It's called the breakfast, and people come and the whole community gathers, and there's not a lot of eating, but there's a lot of warm, nice words being spoken for the departing crews. And last time, Misha Turin, who had just come back, came briefly to just bid us farewell. So we might see Max arrive tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that would be nice. Okay, related to the quarantine, it's Marco is asking, how should we imagine the quarantine? Is it total isolation, or can you still go outside?
You cannot go outside with the exception of 2 days in which you have so-called fit checks. So one is going to be on Wednesday. It's always the day after your arrival. In fact, the day of your arrival to Baikonur is scheduled so that the next day you can go to the fit check. But it's not like really like going outside. I mean, you board the buses and they drive you to the Cosmodrome, and then there is this building where your Soyuz is, and you spend the day familiarizing with your actual spaceship. You go inside in your blue flight suit, and you do some operations and checks, and then you wear your Sokol pressure suit, and you go inside again, and you do other operations and checks. You familiarize yourself with the cargo, with some of the actual flight equipment that you don't necessarily get to see here in Star City. So it's a full day program. You know, we leave very early, around 7ish in the morning, and we get back by 5, 6, and then we're back into quarantine. And then we do a similar event about a week later, a few days before launch. It's the second fit check. At that point, the Soyuz is actually encapsulated in the shroud already, and you do a similar activity, but quite shorter. And that's the only time you get out of the quarantine facilities. You're not really going outside, as I said. I mean, you're going to the Cosmodrome. Everybody out there is wearing like masks. They are briefed. They know very well that they shouldn't come too close to you. They shouldn't shake your hands. So you try to keep it to keep the contact as limited as possible. And then in the quarantine facilities, there's a lot of people in quarantine with us. It's called the operational group. And that includes our instructors, the instructors of the backup crew, the physiotherapists, the sport trainers, lots of doctors, managers, of course. So there's definitely a few dozens people who are in quarantine with us. They live in a different building. As crew, we have a little bit of a separate little building, and nobody else is actually allowed in our little building. But we do go over to the other bigger building where everybody else is staying for classes, for sims, for briefings, for all of that. And so all those people being sort of in quarantine like us, then we can have free contact with them.
Okay. It occurs to me that you're mentioning a lot of people who are involved, and these are just the people in Baikonur, so there's a huge team around going to the ISS and being on the ISS. Which brings me to a question that Joss Jarvis asked on Google+. He said, oh no, sorry, that's the wrong one. This is from Chris Hilbert, sorry. He says, with all the complex training you have received, sorry, wrong one again. Sorry, there's this question here. I was wondering if you could tell us about how important teamwork and communication is between the space and teams on the ground. How does it contribute to the success of the ISS program?
It's probably the key thing. Successful crews that are efficient in performing their missions are successful and efficient because they have good communication with the ground. You know, we are, in a way, up there. We're really the hands and the eyes of the ground teams. The activities, I mean, the space station itself and all the activities on the space station are way too complex for like a few people like us to grasp. We cannot be aware of all the constraints, of all the complexities, of everything that is involved in all the tasks that we perform for 6 months. Everything is way too complex. So in a way, you have to be able to constantly work together by pulling, you know, the training of the astronaut and performing the tasks, but all the knowledge and expertise that people on the ground have on a particular system or on a particular operation. And it's not so obvious. I mean, it's we're going to be up in space. The ground teams are on the ground, and it's not so obvious always to make that work smoothly. And so it's really what makes the difference between a good crew and an excellent crew is how well they can help this whole communication happen in a smooth and efficient way.
Okay, and one of the roles in that is the Capcom in America, and somebody is asking, Christina is asking if Luca will be your Capcom at all.
I think that Luca, last time that I was aware of, he was still in training, but he might either have completed his training recently or he might complete his training very soon. So he's not going to be like a lead Capcom for my increment, but I would expect that before I come back by May, we will have talked on space to ground, and that of course will be fun. And then of course in Europe, in Cologne, we have our own Eurocoms who are, like the Capcoms, they're responsible for communicating with the crew, but for the Columbus Control Center, so for all the activities, both systems-wise and science-wise, that we do in Columbus. So I'll obviously talk to a bunch of our Eurocoms, whom, of course, I know very well.
Yeah.
By the way, the lead Eurocom for Increment 42, so for the initial part of the mission, is Leopold Ehret, so a French colleague, a French astronaut. So.
Oh, okay, good. Coming to the experiments, yeah, that was one of the questions I was trying to ask earlier, but it was the wrong one. Joss Jarvis is saying, of many of the experiments that you'll be conducting on the ISS, are there any that are of particular interest to you?
I think I'm going to quote Don Pettit on that. Somebody told me that he got asked this question, and I thought his answer was just great. Experiments on the ISS are like a box of chocolate. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get, but it's probably going to be really good. So, I think every day on the ISS, when you get up and on your schedule you have some science experiment, and you're really doing the main thing. I mean, the main purpose of the ISS is to do science, and so you're really contributing to that. It's a good day. So I don't necessarily have favorites or least favorites. I think it's just nice to be able to do science on board.
Yeah, and a more specific question about the science is: will the Expedition 42 be doing experiments that test the effect of nutrition on immune systems?
I'm not aware of specifically anything that studies that interaction between nutrition and the immune system. It would be definitely interesting. There might be some, in the future, in hindsight, just compiling the data that we get. Somebody in the future might want to do a meta study and compare data that we have. We do a lot of collection of body fluids, body samples of different kinds, and we do that periodically throughout the mission, and those are actually stored, frozen and stored. So anytime, even in the future, a researcher that wants to compile all the data for a meta study looking into specifically biomarkers that relate to the immune system and related to that to whatever data we collect about the nutritional state of the astronauts on board, all of that is certainly possible, and it might certainly happen.
Okay. And just recently you've been doing some posts about like a music countdown, and Laura says that she thinks it's awesome that you've been counting down with a launch playlist. How important is music or having a soundtrack to your mission experience?
I really think it's important because the space station is noisy. There's a lot of fans on all the time, a lot of equipment, and I think that noise can be stressful. And so I think that having some headsets on and somehow tuning that background noise out and instead replacing it with music, I think it just helps to get stressed out from the noise. Plus, it connects you with human creativity, with the cultural background you come from or you're used to. So I think it's really important.
Okay. And a slightly different question, but as you know, Karen Nyberg, during her mission, she was doing things with crafts, and Joanne Clements is asking if you're going to be trying to knit or crochet in space.
I think I lack the basic skills there. It ain't gonna happen.
I didn't think so somehow. Okay. Question from Google Plus. Akshay says, how will you combat homesickness for 180 days?
I've never been somebody who suffers a lot from homesickness. I have to say, I've been used since I was a little child, actually, to be gone from home for a long time. When I was 9, 10, 11, I used to spend already, in the summer times, up to like a month or two. And back then it was the German-speaking world, to stay with families, to local families, and learn German. So I think I've gotten used to, from a very early age, to just be parachuted in a place and consider it home. So I really think that the ISS will be just like that.
It sounds like you've had the perfect training for that, anyway. Okay. So one question from myself, actually, is, I mean, you're part of the Astronaut Class 2009, and I think we've all seen that you have quite a lot of good camaraderie between you. What's it like for you to know that you have that behind you, and Luca and Alex have already been, and maybe they share the experiences with you?
Well, I have to say I'm a little bit worried to show up on station just after Alex left, because we are called shenanigans for a reason. So no, jokes apart. It's partly a joke. I mean, I'm somewhat serious, but no, aside from that, I mean, it's great. What has been really great is that it's the way that things have panned out. We are all flying sort of back to back. I mean, none of us is going to have to wait really a long time to fly. We're all assigned now. None of us is there waiting for an assignment, wondering whether he or she will ever get to space. And so that is just great, because it's just, it's like we are one big group, and different people are just in a different stage of the same experience. Luca has been back for a while. Alex just got back. I'm about to start. Tim is, approaching his last year of training. Andy will actually fly even before Tim next year. Andy's coming to Baikonur with us, by the way, and he'll be in quarantine with us just to get an exposure to the experience before his shorter flight next year. So, it's like we're one group. We're sharing exactly the same experience with our, the different flavor that we all bring to it, because we're different people. But you're just in a different stage. If it's not your turn yet, your turn is gonna come. It's just nice.
Great. And there was one question I saw here. Yeah, I don't quite know what this experiment is, but it's Jim. He's saying, will you be working with grade school science teachers and students with their shoebox experiment? But I'm not sure if that's an American experiment. But will you be working with schools?
I don't know of any experiments that I'm scheduled to do that is directly working with schools. I might do some little science demos if I get to it, but that will be more in my free time. But that might be maybe Terry. It might be more of a...
Yeah. Okay, so one a bit more serious question. What do you think will be the future of European manned space exploration after 2020?
Those questions are for way above my... No, but what I can say, of course, is there is a strong commitment from Europe to continue to be present in human spaceflight, and I think this great situation we have just now, where we have European astronauts flying literally back to back in the case of Alex and me, and with very short breaks in the coming years, this almost permanent presence of Europeans on the space station. I think it's really a sign that Europe is totally committed to human space flight. So while I do think that commenting on the details is something for people above my pay grade, I am totally convinced that we are committed to stay and continue to be a strong presence in this business.
Okay, so hopefully a future mission for you as well, then.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
So somebody's asking here. I guess it's about you share a common background with other crewmates as a pilot. Did that help you during the training, and if so, how?
I think it helped a lot, at least in two ways. One is you share a certain way of approaching an operational environment, and that's true for the three of us, of course, and it's even especially true, I'd say, with Terry, because you know, I'm an Italian combat pilot, but I've done my pilot training in the US, so in a way I'm at least partly US Air Force trained like he is. So we really share this common mindset and common approach in being in an operational environment. You know, that can be a flight on an airplane, or it can be a space mission. But the other thing is also that with that, you know, being a combat pilot also comes a certain kind of humor, certain shared expressions, inside jokes, and that helps immensely, because it's a lot easier when you have a lot of fun, and we have a lot of fun together.
Okay, great. And you'll be going up. You'll be joining 3 crew members who were there already, and then towards the end of your mission, there'll be 3 others. Do you train with them much at all?
Not a whole lot. I've trained quite a bit with Sasha Samakutyaev, because we trained together for ATV. So I was the prime operator and he was my second operator. So we did quite a lot of ATV training together, the exams. And then at some point there was a possibility that I might do a Russian EVA in the Orlan, where, as a matter of fact, at that point it was more like Alex was supposed to do it, and I was trained as his backup. And I did that training with Sasha Samakutyaev, and that's of course very intense. I mean, being in the Orlan is very intense, and he obviously has a lot of experience in the suit, so in the Russian suit, and he gave me a lot of tips and suggestions, and it was just very, very pleasant to work with him, and effective. With the other crew members that are on board right now, or that will join us later, I've mainly done emergency training in Houston. I do a few sessions in which it's, you know, it really has to be the entire crew, the 6 persons, and we play out how we want to deal with an emergency when there's actually 6 of us on board.
Okay, okay. So it's not like when you arrive there that you're the guest in someone else's house for a bit. Okay, a question from David, I think it's Sironi. He says, what's the phase during the launch that you're curious to find out about?
Oh, everything. I mean, no, I mean, I can't think of one single moment during the launch that I'm not, you know, curious about, or yeah, really. I mean, it's almost 9 minutes of you know, engines burning, and I think it's a sequence of ever-changing sensations. You know, you start, and you know, probably somewhat it will shake, and then, you know, initially you're like completely enclosed in the shroud. At some point the shroud comes off, and potentially you could see outside the window. I mean, it's going to be night, so I'm not sure how much we're going to see. So that will change, of course, and then you have the subsequent you know, shut down of the different stages, and then the ignition of the next stages. You know, it's hard for me to fathom how it will look like, all of these moments. So I'm really looking forward to experience, and hopefully record it in my mind and remember it all.
Yeah, and then you've got the next moment is seeing the ISS, of course, for the first time.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because we were discussing this the other day with Terry and some other friends, and it's like, you probably don't really see it.
No.
The commander sort of sees it from the central seat, because you have the periscope, and that's sort of like a direct view. From the sides, you can kind of peek, but you don't completely see it fully. We'll have a camera view. There's a camera which is pointing forward, and we will all be able to see the camera view. But from the, you know, the windows on the outside, the only moment that you can catch a glimpse of it is when the Soyuz turns around to do the burn. There's a sequence of burns that you do to approach the station. So mainly, or most of the time when you're approaching, you're actually facing the station, you're pointing at it. But then when you have to do the burns, the final burns are like braking burns, so the Soyuz spins around like that. And so the right seater, so in our case, Terry, is probably the one who will be able to catch a glimpse of it, because that's the way it turns. most likely as a Lead seater, I won't actually catch a glimpse of the station from our approaching Soyuz.
So you'll have to strain your neck and
I think it's really hard. Now, when you come closer, I think that's when it becomes really impressive, because probably on the side, you might catch a glimpse of the stack, and as you come in close, it's not fully in front of you, but it starts to be part on your sides too, because the station is so big. That's when you start seeing it for real.
And how about, okay, the next moment is the hatch opens, and then.
Yeah, and it's the end of or not quite the end, but it's towards the end of a really, really long day. So my hope is that I will still be feel fully present and not too tired. I think the adrenaline of that day is gonna keep me going, and it's just gonna be amazing. I mean, it's just opening this hatch and find yourself in Wonderland in a way for me, right? Because I've been dreaming about this for so long. It's something, I think it's a mix of being in a place which is actually unfamiliar, just because you're in space and I haven't been, and at the same time so utterly familiar because of all the time that I have spent studying the station. So it will be this weird sensation of being in a totally new and unfamiliar place, and yet it will be in many ways so familiar.
Yeah. I have a question from Isabel, who says, how are you going to spend your free time? She gives some options, but she says looking out the cupola, tweeting, reading, ham radio.
I'll definitely spend time in the cupola, I'm pretty sure. I'll try and do photos. I'll try also to get good at it, get better at it as time progresses. I'll definitely try and share as much as possible of my experience on social media. So I'll try to do that. I don't want to overdo it either, of course, because I also want to be able to be present in my experience. Sometimes you're so eager to share your experience that you forget to experience it yourself. So I need to strike the right balance there. But definitely the commitment is there to share as much as possible.
And how about the ham radio? Do you plan to do anything with that?
I'm planning to do ESA Contacts. That's the contacts with the schools when you answer questions to students. There is, the ham radio is there, and there is an option to just freely use it for random contacts whenever you want. It's not necessarily something I plan, but when I'm up there, I might feel like doing it. So who knows?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, somebody asked the same question. And do you have a call sign?
Yes, I definitely have a call sign, which I don't remember right now. So.
Okay. Okay, so let me just check the time. Yeah, so we're coming up to 40 minutes, which is the amount of time that you have graciously given us today. So, well, thank you so much for joining us. It's fantastic that you took the time to do this. And I don't know if you have any parting comment that you want to give.
Oh no, I'm really bad at that.
Yeah. Everybody who's been following along, and myself included, we wish you all the best for the coming weeks coming couple of weeks in Baikonur, and then that experience there in the rocket and arriving at the ISS, and we'll be following you on social media. So Samantha is very active on Google+, on Twitter, and where else? What else are you doing?
Flickr.
Flickr, yes. Well, you can follow her page at samanthacristoforetti.esa.int and use the hashtag Futura42 for her mission.
That was it. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria, and thanks to everybody who's been following. And it'd be a great ride, so come along. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Samantha. Bye.